Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to Kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kelber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Well, hello everybody to Wednesday Wham. We made it through another week. We have
barely.
we have Martin Mertonen, colorist for Silverline. You have myself, creator of Divinity, of Rob Davis, the venerable Rob Davis.
Barb, you forgot your we forgot your Empress of Inks title.
Empress of Inks, sorry. My Empress of Inks title. Mickey Clausen, colorist extraordinaire, and the legendary, the man, the myth, the legend, Paul Kupperburg, who used to be my editor. He used to be my editor at DC.
That's right.
So,
and you're late, by the way. So.
Oh yeah, never. I've never been late in my life.
Wow.
No, you weren't.
I know.
That would be very interesting.
Which is why I always had to, Barb, you got to catch us up. I would always catch up to slow pencilers.
Yeah, Inkers always got that, didn't they?
Yeah. Barb, is it okay if we do throw out our condolences to Roland and his family?
Yes, please. Let's do that.
So, so we here at Wednesday Wham, all of us are going to give our condolences to our head honcho, Roland Mann, and his wife and their family. They have lost Roland's father this past week. So we are, all of us have been deeply affected by that, as well as Roland. So our hearts are out with you, our prayers and our wishes and our glad tidings or comfort be with you, Roland and family, during this time. So
okay. Yeah, bad news out of the way. Now the fun starts. Yeah.
Now the fun starts. Yes,
well,
we had you on.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, you're the fun. we recently had.
We know you.
We recently had you on to talk about your career as a writer.
Right.
which I think is important for the part of an editor. But now we're going to pick your brains about the editorial side of your life, which a lot of comic book fans was like, why do we need an editor? What do they?
A lot of comic book creators feel that way.
So why do we need? Why do we need?
Well, actually, none. Okay, answer that one, and I have a follow-up question.
Okay. Yeah. The editor. In an ideal world, the editor is a traffic cop. The editor is there to give the assignment. Here's the date it's due. He gets it. She gets it back, and it goes to the next step. So the editor is just keeping track of the process, making sure the trains are running on time and that they get to the station where they're supposed to get at the right time. That's an ideal world. We don't live in an ideal world.
Wrangler. You're a cat wrangler.
It can be. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to get yelled at for hiring John Byrne because it's like, why do you give Byrne everything? Well, because I never have to worry about it again. I know that for the next 3 years on Wonder Woman, I never have to give Wonder Woman a thought.
Because
those are
just hire the right people and turn them loose.
That's right.
People and turn them loose. Yep.
That's right. That's really the best way to work. I mean, that's why I hired people like Barb all the time, because I knew I could count on her. She wasn't good, but I could. No, I did. She was very good, but I wouldn't. You look for good and reliable. In my book of interviews, Direct Conversations, I was talking to a lot of people from my, that I got into the business with in the 70s. And Steve Mitchell was one of them. He was an anchor, of course, at DC. But before that, he spent several years in the production department. He was witness to many fun incidents. But he tells the story of Sal Harrison, who was the president of DC Comics and had been the production manager there for years. And in fact, literally did the color separations on Famous Funnies #1. So was in comics from day one. And Sal was he was an imperious little man, but shaped like a weeble. But he knew his stuff. And so Neil Adams brings in the last pages of Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
Oh.
This is a long overdue book. Neil always said, I never missed a deadline in my life. I think Neil may have misremembered. But anyway, he brings in these pages, and we will all agree, I hope, otherwise you're idiots, that Superman versus Muhammad Ali is one of the best art jobs in the history of comic books.
Yeah, beautiful work. Beautiful work. Yeah, agreed.
So Sal's looking at it, he's flipping through the pages, and when he's done, and remember, this is a late book, he turns to Neil and he goes, Adams, this is the best work you've ever done and not worth the wait.
Ooh, laid out on the line.
Well, yeah. And Neil,
wow.
You got to understand, Neil respected Sal. Neil knew what Sal could do. Neil understood the knowledge that these guys held. I mean, I don't think he took umbrage at it at all. But that was the case, though. We had this book. You got to remember back then, when books were scheduled to go to press at a certain time, and you paid for that press time.
Right.
Whether you ran a comic book through it at that time or not, you were paying.
You paid for it. Yeah. So
why do you think all those reprints?
Right.
Yeah.
So and then that's also if somebody missed the deadline, you were paying money. You were losing money.
You could lose the entire profit of the book and then some by missing a print deadline. Yeah.
So now you have touched on a very important point. Then why do you need an editor? Because he's making sure that the bottom line is still being met.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It really is. And I see here's a question: has a job ever been so late you just had to forget it and move on with someone else? Yes. I won't name names because I don't want to, But yeah, I had several instances. Listen, I'll tell these stories. I mean, they're in. I've written my comic book memoir, which I'll be publishing later this year, and I had to fire Gil Kane. So yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean that's
But most people forget comics is a business. It's got to be run like a business. When I came into the comics, I had that mindset that this was a business, and if you didn't do well, you weren't going to put a roof over your head.
Yeah. Sure. So just so the general comic book audience knows, if you don't know, Gil Kane was a top tier artist back in the day, and he was a legend. So the fact that a legend fired a legend is pretty profound.
I haven't reached legendary status yet. Certainly not.
So how would you go about firing someone like Gil Kane? Like did he have clout at that time, or was it?
Well, the situation was. He was doing a graphic novel for me, The Life Story of the Flash, that was written by Mark Waid and Brian Augustyn. It was a hardcover graphic novel. It was a 96-page story. DC gave me a short deadline to begin with to get it produced that I knew I was going to miss, even if Gil had been perfect and on time. He was messing up terribly, and not. This is Gil Kane. Again, this man has been around since the 40s. One of the best artists in the business. I think certainly one of the top designers of comics in the 1960s. I mean, this is the guy who came up with the Hal Jordan Green Lantern costume, the Atom costume, the Adam Warlock's costume. I mean, this guy, he knew how to design, and he also knew you don't wear a stupid cape when you're fighting crime. Anyway. He was late. He was just late. He just wasn't performing, and I kept going, Gil, come on, what's going on? Let me, what can we do? Let's get this moving. And he just, no, it's all right, my boy, I'll take care of it. It's all fine. And finally, it got to a point where I said, look, if I don't get X by this date, I'm gonna have to do something. I'm gonna have to get somebody in to do this. And no, I'll get. Well, he didn't perform, and I called him and I said, Gil, I'm sorry. I hate to do this. But, and he was like, no, I understand. It's,
So when it gets,
well, it turned out he was suffering a relapse from cancer, but it was afraid that if he told me what was going on, I would fire him because he was sick. What I would have done is what I wound up doing without him, which was bringing in someone to help to finish the job. But I could have done it with Gil still, if he had only told me what was going on. I got Joe Staten to finish up, and Joe had been a Gil Kane assistant for a while, so he certainly knew, Gil's mindset. And Tom Palmer inked it, so everything was beautiful. But yeah, so I was, for 3 days, my stomach's in knots because I've got to fire, Gil Kane.
Wow.
So it ain't all fun and games.
Yeah. So that's an important note for anyone who's out there who's in this game. If issues,
to your editor.
Talk to your editors and let them know what's going on.
Always.
Yeah. So because then they'll help figure stuff out. And it also looks good on you if you end up stepping up and saying, you know what, I can't do it, or there's issues we need to resolve. How do we resolve them?
Absolutely, and it doesn't turn into a case of you getting a reputation for having not performed. If you cop to it and deal with it, we can work around it. But yeah, no, it's a sad story. I also had to fire Frank Jacobs, the Mad Magazine writer, the guy who was in every issue of Mad Magazine from day one. He was writing a book for me, a Madvertising book about the Mad ad parodies, and he was just like sloughing it off and sending in a few paragraphs at a time and billing me for large amounts of his payment. And I went to the mad guys who had told me that he was the guy to write the book. And I said, Frank's screwing it up. I don't know what to do. And they go, well, you got to fire him. Well, you told me to hire him. Yeah, well, we figured if he had performed, but Frank likes to gamble. He spends a lot of time at the track, and if he's losing, so he said, so yeah, you got to fire him.
I remember a book that we worked on together. You were the editor for, and we started out at the very beginning on issue number 1 with a specific team, and the penciler just kept getting later and later and later, and I was having to try to catch him up. And I would call him, and I'm like, "Where are my pages?" And he was like, "I'm just not feeling the art today."
Feel this. You know what? Yeah.
You ended up replacing him, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Look, it's a business. Like you said, it's a business. It's a job. It's yes, it's fun and it sure beats working for a living. And and yes, it's an art. But before it's an art, it's a job. It's a business. You have to sacrifice. Sometimes you have to sacrifice that for the art for the business side.
Yeah. So actually, that was a question I was going to ask you right near the top, because you mentioned the getting people who are good and on time. So what is a better fit for a business model? Is it an exceptional artist that is late all the time, or somebody who is decent and timely?
If I'm doing a monthly, I'll take decent and timely over a great artist who's late all the time. Because while I get to yell at the creators who are late, I had to sit through these asinine weekly DC Universe staff meetings where Mike Carlin yelled at people. That was it. Every week we met, the whole staff got together in the conference room so Mike Carlin could go over the hot list and yell at us. He also had stuff come out, so it's like, so all late books is an aggravation for an editor. I don't, if Brian Bolland didn't deliver the Wonder Woman covers on time, I would have stopped using him.
Yeah.
Even though he's popular.
And as a professional in the business, I knew that, and I knew I was never going to be a Brian Boland or a Neil Adams, but I figured if I made the deadlines and I did decent work, I should have a career.
Listen, now, I sucked as a writer, and I was writing. I sucked as a writer, and I was writing 5 and 6 books a month.
Because you're getting them done. Because you were getting them done.
So here's a question for the creatives: How clear cut was the information that was being given to a creative as to what the expectations are and what the delivery dates are and all that kind of stuff? How
you got a deadline for him with every job.
Okay.
You got what we would send out to the art. Well, you talk to a writer, and the writer would, it's like, all right, this is the plot. Well, that's due next Friday. Fine. They knew that. When we sent the script to the artist, it went out with a voucher to sign, a deadline form, the paper to draw on, and and off you go.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then other than the fact that you could be yanked from your job, were there other repercussions for handing stuff in late, or?
Yeah, usually they let the prima donnas slide. I mean, look,
right. Well, the prima donnas, but
few people got fired. You got yelled at a little, big deal. So you still had the job. There wasn't a lot of repercussions. I don't remember a lot of people.
Well, they wouldn't withhold pay or anything like that, or.
Oh no.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
No,
but the later you get, the less work you get too. So
that's
right.
If you're not.
Yeah. Okay.
David wants to know. David says, without naming names, what's the best excuse you ever heard for late work? Like the dog ate my homework.
I have cancer.
Yeah, Gil Kane's excuse.
Yeah, Gil Kane saying I have cancer didn't help.
Yeah, but that was true. I mean,
but well, because there is no good excuse for being late for work, and none of them are good. None of them are best. They're all
Okay,
bullshit.
so what's the funniest?
yeah.
I don't
That's a good one.
remember. I mean, I never got a dog ate my homework thing. You know, I may
I
have
accidentally
gotten,
put it through the paper shredder.
yeah. Nah, it seldom,
Mm.
seldom.
Okay,
You
well,
know, yeah.
yeah. There's another aspect to editing that, and that's going through scripts and
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
and seeing this is a crappy script that's got to be rewritten. Now, would that be your opinion, or do you have run it past other people, or
No, it's the
how does
editor's
that work?
opinion. If I'm not happy with a script, then it, I'm within my rights to go back to the writer and say, this isn't good. This isn't acceptable to me. I mean, good. Listen, I read plenty of comics that are published that I do not consider good. So obviously somebody did, but if you're working for me, then you have to meet my standards whether you like it or not.
So what if the writer comes back and argues with you and say, well, here's the reasoning behind this. You're not getting it. Can you compromise?
Oh, you're not getting it is not not good. You're not getting it means I didn't write this in a way that you can understand. And that's not my fault. That's your fault.
But what if they intended it that way?
Then he's Grant Morrison, and more power to him.
Yeah. Ooh, that was okay.
Well, no, I'm not a part. Grant will tell you. I think Grant is very happy when people don't understand the scripts.
Yeah. No. Okay. All right. Okay. So you would be mapping the scripts and you would be mapping the art. Would you be requesting changes in the art as well?
If need be, although there usually wasn't time for that.
Right. Okay.
Usually when the artist didn't follow, you would ask for a change if the artist didn't follow the script, which they frequently didn't. But because it's more hassle to change the art than it is to rewrite a few panels of script, you usually had the writer rewrite it because it was faster and easier than redrawing the page.
Right. Okay. So you didn't necessarily have a process where someone would send in like, okay, here's the rough layouts. Send it in. You take a look at it, and then send it back and say, okay, finish the pages or make alterations. Okay.
Sometimes.
And
I was hiring professionals. I didn't need them to run their layouts by me. That wouldn't have been the problem.
Okay. Oh well, I was just wondering how hands on you were. Okay.
And work as little as possible.
Right.
The job didn't pay that much.
Yeah. Were you responsible for monitoring continuity?
In my book, sure, and make sure that everything fit with what was going on around me. If one of my creators wanted to use a character in another editorial office, I would be the one to go and clear it with that office.
Yeah.
So there was a very few times, but once in a while, I would get instructions like, on panel such and such page, whatever. Can you fix this head, or can you do this?
Yeah.
Because you had caught something, or one of my other editors had caught something in the pencils and wanted it changed in the inks. So,
yeah, well, again, it's a matter of what's expedient. It's faster. You're already getting the pages. It's faster to ask the inker to change a face or two than to send it back to the artist and deal with it. And just it's another round of mail to send out.
So I was assuming that you were going through all of the pages of the pencils and looking at it and for continuity and and other things like that.
You mean continuity in that and in the issue itself? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. From panel to panel continuity. Yeah, I thought you meant issue to issue and DCU continuity.
Well, that too.
I think she meant both. But yeah.
So did that?
I watched that too. Yeah, I watched that. I'm looking for storytelling. I'm looking for continuity. Looking for character consistency. All that stuff.
And did that
Color
process get easier?
Excuse me?
Say again,
Bob?
Bert.
Color
I said,
consistency.
and color consistency. Hey, this was supposed to be
Oh, sure.
day, not night.
Oh,
Stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
every
no, it's
step
all
of the
part, it's all
line.
part of the pack. Yeah, it's all. I'm watching the lettering. I make sure that the ballooning is. Well, usually well, it was standard for editors to send out pages, Xeroxes with the balloons indicated
Right.
for the letterer. And once I found out that all the letterers ignored that because that's what they do. Yeah. And although I was pretty good at it, I remember when when DC was moving from 1325 Avenue of the Americas to 1700 Broadway. We had this one, it was like one office left with some desks at 1325 for us to work at while everything else was being moved. So I was in there at the last minute ballooning a bunch. I think it was Judge Dredd pages. And I'm just at my desk, I'm at the desk sitting there with the script and the thing, and I'm just boom, 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 boom. And, and Carlin is sitting at another desk, and he had this balloon fetish. I don't know what the hell his problem was, but, his only notes would be like, move this balloon 1 inch over to the left. Yeah, I'll take care of that right away. So he's watching me and he's going, what are you doing? I go, well, I'm ballooning these pages. He goes, you're doing it awful fast, aren't you? Well, it's not rocket science. It's, putting balloons in logical places so that they read right on the page. Let me see what you're doing there. You can't be doing it right. You're doing too. Look at the pages. Okay, yeah, these are fine. But everybody, he was like, it's not that stuff is not that complicated. It's just common sense. I mean, a lot of people are bad at it. Certainly a lot of art. I once had a story I wrote, and I did it Marvel style. So I get the I get the art, and there's a little margin note from the artist going, at panel 3, don't cover that branch and that tree with with balloons or caption. I spent an hour and a half drawing that branch. So I immediately put a big balloon right over that goddamn branch.
Absolutely.
Because what the hell are you doing?
Spending an hour and a half on a branch.
On a
On
branch.
a letterpress comic, for Christ's sake. Give it up.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so now,
Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, so when the digital age came in, did that process speed up a lot?
It's weird. I was still doing comics on the cusp of the digital changeover. We had started doing a lot of pasting, lettering paste up, so that helped make books even later because now you didn't have to get the boards to the letterer for them to work on the boards. You could just send them a Xerox and they can letter it on an overlay.
Yeah.
So then we got the lettering back, and when the boards finally came in, the ink boards went to production, and they pasted up the word balloons, and they would promptly fall off within 48 hours. But that was because and then they found out they can do it digitally, so then they started doing the digital lettering, and then the digital lettering goes on top of the digital art. And now I understand that writers get a first draft of the digital lettering, and they can rewrite on those.
Sure. Why not?
Board. Why not? Because they don't pay the letterer twice.
Yeah.
And the writer should write it right the first fucking time. That's wrong.
Yeah.
No.
You have some good points there.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of letterers and they all hate this, but they have no choice because that's the way it's done now. But they're doing twice the amount of work for frankly even less money than used to get paid.
Yeah.
So
I think when I worked at Innovation, they started doing things like that too. And the word balloons were on acetate sheet. rather than digitally. I'm sure if they'd gone with
Yeah.
the digital age, they'd done it digitally.
Yeah,
But
and then
sometimes
wax.
it was done on a sheet of acetate and glued on.
Yeah,
And that
they used to
worked
wax.
pretty well.
I remember I was in DC's production room department. It was, by then it was called the pre-press department because there were no more drawing boards. Everything was, big. Everything was digital. And I was down there while I was having some stuff scanned for something, and some of the younger production guys in their 20s, they pointed, that thing on the shelf there, what is that? It's been there forever. We don't know what it was.
I don't know what you're
that's a
talking about.
wax.
I have one.
And, yeah, and he didn't know what that
It's in
was.
storage.
I said, well, it's what replaced rubber cement to paste up, and it's like,
Yeah.
rubber cement. They didn't know what that stuff. And I'm talking about the year 2001 or 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was insane.
That would be about right. Yeah. So that stuff started. I went to art school in that zone, and that stuff was starting to go the way of Dodo Bird. So.
I wonder what my waxer
That's
would
fine. Yeah, I don't mind
on
innovation.
eBay.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not putting down innovation or anything. That's all. It's all well and good. It's just it seems to have offered an opportunity to do things kind of lazy. Skip steps because it's digital. We can always go back. And fix.
Yeah.
All right.
So was it your job to round up cover artists?
Yeah, sure. I mean, sometimes I got lucky. Like when I took over Wonder Woman, I inherited Brian Bolland.
Oh, yes.
And when his run ended, I had John Byrne for a little bit, and then some guy named Jose Luis Garcia something.
Oh man,
so
beautiful stuff there.
Yeah. No, I would. That was again. It was the editor's job just to put together the package. I may go to, you for instance, the Wonder Woman covers were assigned to Tatiana Wood for coloring. Not that I would ever dream of saying, no, I don't want Tatiana Wood, because she was probably one of the best colorists that ever lived. Usually I could pick whoever I wanted, except if they had, they were contractual commitments or some such.
Now, how many books? How many books would you be working on at any given point in time?
Usually about 6 or 7 titles and a bunch of specials and annuals and whatever.
Wow,
that's a busy schedule.
Yeah.
So that'd be 6 or 7.
That's right.
So that's 6 or 7 monthly books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, some of them may be, miniseries that'll rotate out and others will come in, but yeah. Yeah, that was
6
usually
or 7 teams to juggle. 6 or 7 teams of personalities.
Yeah.
But again, the trick is to hire good people and turn them loose. Yeah.
And for the most part, yes, that's what happens. But not everybody is that good and that professional.
Unfortunately.
And there were, even my best efforts, I wound up with a couple of stiffs that, were not that much fun to work with, but, just don't hire them again.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have total freedom to hire who you wanted, or did you have to take that name and run it past anybody?
No, pretty much. I mean, as long as they were one of our, no, I don't think I ever had any problems with, if I was like when I was editing the Judge Dredd monthly, the ongoing title that we did for a little bit at the time of the Stallone movie. DC got the license for a year and a half or so, and I was editing those books. And on the Judge Dredd title, it was written by Andy Helfer, but the art was by a new young lad named Michael Avon Oming, who hadn't done, who had just done some indie stuff. So him I ran by other people just to say, what do you think? But if it was an established professional, I wouldn't have to. I wouldn't bother with that.
Cool.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Did you have any instances where uh, you wanted to hire somebody and you had to fight for them to keep them? Say
Yeah,
somebody.
believe it or not, when I wanted to hire Byrne, I had a fight one particular asshole group editor. I think you can guess who I'm talking about. His initials were DR, but I won't say any more. But yeah, he had like fanboy reasons to dislike Byrne. It's like, I didn't like what he did to Kitty Pryde or something like that. So, and also John wouldn't have worked with this guy for a raise. So anyway, he gave me a hard time about that, but I just went to somebody above him and went, Byrne.
Come on. Yeah.
All right.
So
So
if a penciler came to you and said, I know that you've already arranged for my inker, colorist, letterer, whatever, but I really want to have this person instead. How would you handle a situation like that?
I don't know. It depends if they wanted somebody who was, clearly better, a better choice, and someone that would make them happy. Although if I'd already hired somebody, I would be unlikely to say, I'm going to stiff this guy unless I could find them another assignment to make up for it. If I could.
Yeah, that's how editors lose people working for them, is to suddenly at the last minute yank them off a book. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and hopefully the penciler would understand that. And I didn't work with that many prima donnas who would pull that kind of stuff. So
that's good. Do you have any questions?
So how? I was just gonna.
All right, somebody.
Oh, okay. So I was going to ask you about so scheduling. So how? So you have your monthlies that are given, but how far out are you scheduling the books, and how are you coordinating your timelines, and then and were some of those timelines being affected by the other offices as well?
Well, ideally, you'd want to work 4 to 6 months out. Again, reality came along, and we were usually working 2 to maybe 3 months out. And if there was something that needed to be coordinated with another office, you'd usually know well enough in advance. Certainly when there were all those crossover events we had to deal with. There was always that was always a concern. But again, those usually fell around the same time of the year. So, if you had half a mind, you could plan for it somehow. Although a lot of these guys didn't have half a mind. So,
so you'd be asking your writers sometimes to be writing a book 6 months in advance. All right. So now would that sometimes if you needed something that was more timely, like let's say
we hardly ever made it 6 months out. I mean, most of the time it was 2 or 3 months. And if something came up that close, then it was out of luck. I mean, we needed. It's only fair to give ample warning if you're going to do something like that.
Right. No. Did you ever have a situation where you had to there was a situation in the world that you guys wanted to address, and then you guys had to kind of pull something together as quickly as possible?
Nope.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Easy question.
Well, one time the real world intruded was on the issue of Wonder, where Wonder Woman died. We did we had a stunt. It was Wonder Woman's turn to be killed because Superman had died, Batman had gotten his back broken, Wonder Woman had to die and be resurrected as a goddess. So we were going through that, and the issue with the foul newspaper headline saying, Princess Diana dead or whatever it said, came out a week before the real Princess Diana bit the big one in the tunnel in Paris. And even though, again, this cover was done months in advance and there was no way to know, Well, I wasn't biting my finger. It's like, you know what? You live in the world, shit happens, and and
Well, you almost wonder if that's prescient, right? Interesting.
no,
Prescient,
it's just
yeah.
a coincidence.
Yeah.
And I, but he came to me and said, "How could you let that happen?" I wasn't going to kill her. I wasn't going to make sure she died in that tunnel. I just wanted to break a few limbs. But hey, things got out of hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh. So, yeah, you were talking about half a brain earlier. I think that's one of them.
Oh yeah. Well, this guy was a quarter brain at best.
You touched on something a little earlier about crossovers. Now, didn't they used to have big editorial retreats where they would sit down and work all this out? Like, all right, you're going to have this part of the story, and you're going to have that part of the story, and
the Batman and the Superman offices at the time when they were both doing those, all the books were connected. The Superman Triangle era. They would have every 6 months they would have a big meeting of all the creatives on the staff and the editorial, and they'd all sit down and plot out the next 6 months, and I hated both of those eras of the comic. But but no, in general, there would be, every year it would be somebody's turn to come up with a stunt for the the company-wide crossover.
The big
I
crossover.
avoided it as long as I could, but eventually I had to do one, and it was every bit as bad an experience as I thought it would be.
what was your brilliant idea?
Well, again, I did it with Byrne. What the hell was the name of it? It was.
I'm surprised it wasn't the Death of Superman, since you like to kill all your characters off.
Well, they already killed him.
Mr. I killed Archie.
I killed Archie. I killed Aquababy. I killed Vigilante. I killed the Thinker. I killed several members of the Doom Patrol. Watch your ass.
It's dangerous working for Kupperburg.
That's right. And Aquababy was asking for it.
Barbara got your 6.
What was I saying before that?
Which was your storyline?
Yeah,
crossover.
Yeah, I'm forgetting the title, which is probably a good thing. Might have been called Genesis.
Oh,
Was that it? The bit was there was a thing called the God Wave, which was the Big Bang moment that sent out all the energy that created all the forces, the Speed Force and the Source and all that stuff. And now the wave had reached the extent of its expansion and was contracting and sweeping across through the universe again. And what will be the result of this energy
from the backlash? Okay,
yeah. So was that the attempt to reunify the universe or to blow it back up again?
No. It was neither. It was just a reason. Back in 1979, Paul Levitz and I, or 78, Paul Levitz and I wrote Showcase 100, which was I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was a comic that featured all the characters that had ever appeared in Showcase in the previous 99 issues, and they were all featured in this one big 36-page story that Joe Staten drew. And as far as I'm concerned, that was the best, company-wide crossover that was ever done. Nobody died, and it was all over in 36 pages.
Wow, that's stunning.
No, I wasn't trying to. This wasn't a reboot. This was just the
okay.
Just an excuse to cross over your book, the books with at DC. Yeah.
So at DC, what were your core books?
The Flash, Wonder Woman. I got a lot of little things handed to me to like a lot of miniseries and stuff. But I did the New Gods. Did a bunch. I did a bunch of stuff. Yeah, sure.
Impulse?
What?
Impulse, right?
It's been a day or a minute.
Impulse, yeah, Impulse and Flash, yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
I spent 2.5 years on that.
that's right.
But
Over Craig.
yeah, 2 years over Craig, and then the new penciler after they trashed the entire team and brought in a new team. Then that inker got behind, and they brought me back for 6 more issues.
So you,
Yeah.
Comic Skate Boy.
Yep.
Oh boy,
Mr. Van Skyver.
I apologize.
I'm surprised he let you ink him.
Did you do Primal Force too, or was that? See, I had two editors.
That was not.
Two editors that do that.
That was not the Ethan of those days.
Oh, okay.
That was not him back then.
Well, that's good.
Different human being entirely. I don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm. Sweet,
yeah,
sweet guy.
Yeah.
You did. Was it you or Dooley who did Primal Force with me?
Dooley.
That was
you
Dooley.
did Dooley.
He was my
that
other.
was Dooley.
Yeah. I have to say that I have to give you a shout out here because you and Kevin both had no qualms with giving me work. I had a hard time getting work out of anybody else at DC, and all I could get at Marvel was Barbie and
you're a girl,
Disney. Yeah. I'm a Goyle. But you guys never saw my gender. You just saw my inks, and that was props to you for that. Because that was back in the day when there was a very much a glass ceiling.
Oh, there still is. I mean, it's a glass made out of different elements now, but it's still there. It's listen. I've been, when I had my first chance to create a super team, in the 77. I created the new Doom Patrol, and it was 4 members. 2 of them were women. One was a woman of color, and that wasn't being done in 1977. But it never occurred to me that I was doing something that it just seemed natural to me that half the team would be women, half the team would be men, and one of the men, and of the 2 men I had in there, one was a black guy, and the other was a white guy. A white guy's brain in a robot body. So,
True.
So walk us through a typical day of an editor. So you wake up, you have your coffee, you have your eggs and toast, and then you saunter into the office, and what's going to happen? What are you?
Well, I was commuting from Connecticut, so I would get off the train at Grand Central, walk to DC Comics, pick up a nice egg and cheese on a roll, the New York breakfast, and I go to the office and check my mail or later email because we didn't get computers until about 1999 or so, 2000.
Wow.
Christopher Priest, Jim Owsley at the time. Well, no, he was already Christopher Priest by then. He was the first guy to bring a Mac into the office. They had them in accounting and legal and all that stuff, but editorial, we were still on typewriters. And Jim, he had a Mac Plus that he brought in from home and set it up on his desk, and they were just like, they didn't know what to do with him. We had an office police in those days. You weren't allowed to hang posters on the door and all that stuff. They'd come down and take it off at night, and we'd put it back up, the next day, and they finally gave up, and we turned the offices into the slum they deserve to be. But
all right, so you got into the office, and then you look at your mail, right. and then
check mail, look over, look to see. Wait until usually it was about 10 o'clock, 10:30 by the time they delivered any of the work that had come into the mail room. So that was all unpacked and logged in by editorial administration, and then delivered to us in our offices. So I'd get I'd get work in. Most days I tried, if I could, whoever delivered them would say, got it, it's here, see you later, just to let them know it had arrived. Go over that, deal with it however it had to be dealt with. If I got pencils in, I'd send it off to the letterer, which meant, ballooning pages or doing whatever had to be done. or I'd send lettered pages to the inker. I proofread. If a finished pages came in, I'd those and get them to production. I might have to write and design, do the layouts for a cover. If I got a cover in, I had to write cover copy and then produce a real rough layout for production, and then I'd bring that down to the very talented Bob LaRosa, who was in DC's production department, and he was the king of comic book covers, and also one of the better colorists who worked in letterpress comics over the years. But he would then take what I gave him and have it all lettered up and all that stuff. But that's the type of stuff that was occupied the day, and then you go out to lunch and cheat on your expense account by going with your fellow DC employees and saying you took freelancers to work to lunch, and nothing like an expense account. I miss that.
Yeah.
When did you find time to write?
Well, at home, I could do it on weekends and until I had a kid in evenings, and frankly, once you get the job dialed in, you had a little free time during the day.
Yep.
I could always, there were times I could sneak in, a couple of pages here or there, and.
Now, this was back in the days of phone, fax, and FedEx. There wasn't, there wasn't any emailing back and forth right at the beginning, anyway. Towards the end, there was.
Yeah.
And no, certainly no.
I remember when they instituted, when they gave us a link to be able to log on to our office email from home, and my first reaction was, "Oh shit!" The last
now
thing
they can
I
track
want.
me now.
Yeah.
Now everything is on the internet, through email or Dropboxes or.
I have just finished doing a 112-page graphic novel for a private client, and I did not touch a single piece of paper for the entire process.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
So
my entire art is on a tiny little pad now.
Yeah, and I'm an old-fashioned guy. I'm still working on paper. So
you see, and that's the original art that I'd buy, because it's actually original art, not a printout.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
But I scan it in, and working on a project with Barb, I scan it in, and I've still got the original art here in pencil form on my desk. And she does it digitally, and
Well, we were in the Charlton Neo Comics time. Barb did a lot of inking for us at the Charlton Neo Comics. Me and Mortad and Roger McKenzie, and it was all Blue Line, right?
Yeah,
pretty much all Blue Line, I think.
It's great.
Until I went digital about 4 years ago, I would get the electronic pencils, and then I would print them out in Blue Line on a big Brother Pro printer, and then I would manually ink it on my end. So then I would have all of the inks, and the penciler would have all of the pencils.
Like one of those?
Yeah, one of those.
That's exactly the unit I have sitting in my studio. Yes,
mine's downstairs, and that I like that. I like that because back in the day. When they split up the art, the penciler would get 2/3 of the pages, and the inker would get 1/3.
Right.
And with the Blue Line method, printing it out on Blue Lines, and I got to keep all of the pages.
All of it. Yeah.
And the penciler gets all of the pages as well. Yeah. So it's great.
I've actually gone back to where I got tired of digital, so I'm going back to that.
Yeah. Blue Line. Yeah. Yep.
I spent years. I wrote hundreds of stories on typewriters. And frankly, the thought of ever having to write again on a typewriter is horrifying.
Yeah.
Typo white out. Yeah.
I remember working on a term paper in college, 10-page paper on a typewriter, and and I didn't have whiteout. So if I made an error, I had to go back and retype the whole page again. It took me all night to do a 10-page paper.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Now, with a word processor on a PC, I make a mistake, I'll go back and fix it.
Or sometimes it
Yeah,
fixes itself.
I do too, but now I've got the whiteout all over my screen.
Yeah. You have to clean the screen off every once in a while, right? Yeah.
I didn't know the rules. Sorry.
The only thing about being raised in the typewriter age is that I'm used to putting 2 spaces after a period, and I get yelled at for that because I'm writing now. I'm also writing my own book now, and Roland yells at me for.
I mean, I broke myself of that habit many years ago, but it's also easy enough to correct. You just do a universal, find and replace.
Find and replace.
Design. I do book design, and I have a script that I run through the program. Every document that comes across, I run it through the script. It eliminates double spaces. It eliminates bad tabs.
Ellipses.
5 minutes later, it's all fixed, and I don't have to mess with that.
Yeah.
So,
After I got yelled at
the
after I got yelled at the first couple of times, I figured out the whole find and replace trick for the double spaces. So, I used to.
So back to your editing there in DC. What was the mentality of what you guys were? How am I going to frame this question?
Mentality.
What was the mentality of what it is that you guys were producing? What? So like we talked about the notion of, okay, well, comics is a business, right? But what was it that you guys as a whole back then? What were you guys thinking? What is comics, or what is this stuff that we are creating? What were you guys thinking? How were you thinking about it? Were you guys just thinking completely in the totally like this is just a product that we're pumping out the door, or was there something more to it than that?
There's just something more to it. I mean, it was product that we were pumping out the door, and it continues to be. It can be a very high quality product that we're pumping out the door, and that's what we were aiming for. But frankly, in the rush of in the heat of creativity, you can think about art all you want. In the heat of doing business, you got to get it done. So yes, we want to do art, but art is not the main goal. Now there are projects you do that you can do that. I did a Wonder Woman book called Amazonia, which was written by William Messner Loebs and
spectacular book, absolutely brilliant book.
Spectacular book, and because it was a one-off graphic novel, I could find an artist like Phil Winslade, who I don't know how he does it, but he's one of these guys. The whole book looked like it was made out of woodcut.
Gorgeous
the whole book had been woodcut. It was beautiful. Trish Mulvihill colored it. It was a gorgeous book, and Phil took forever, but it wasn't scheduled, so he could take forever, and we could produce a work of art, which was nominated for the National Cartoonist Society Best Comic Book of the Year that year. So, you can do that. There are times you can do Kingdom Come. You can do, but people think Crisis on Infinite Earths is this great work of art. It was a monthly comic that was, everybody was
they ground it out.
To get it out the door, because you could, these crossover books, you can't be late, because if you're late, then all the other books attached around it are meaningless. So
I would argue that sometimes the deadline actually ends up forcing better work, because people have to be on the ball, and their cylinders are all firing at 100%. So they've got the goal in mind, and then you end up actually producing better stuff.
I don't know if it's that so much as it is just like out of desperation, you just shut off the bullshit and you get the job done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sleep.
So,
What is this sleep you speak of?
I think he did some work for DC too. But like, I mean, somebody like John Romita Jr., right? Like he produced stuff that at top tier quality, and he was hammering stuff out. At least what I remember of the '90s, his stuff was great. So,
well, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who was the son of one of the consummate professionals of our business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like a Kubert kid. Kubert kids aren't late. Kubert boys do not miss their deadlines. Johnny Romita Jr. does not miss his deadlines because they know their fathers would kick their asses if they did.
They come up out of the grave and kick their
yeah.
asses. Yeah.
Oh, Joe. Yeah.
So if someone was to dive into becoming an editor in today's day and age, what would be some advice that you might throw out to them?
I have no clue. I have no clue. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what the job entails these days. From what I hear, it's not the same job. I mean, I'm sure there are similar elements, but I don't know. People ask me, how do I break into comics? Well, I can tell you how I broke into comics, but you won't be able to do that because that environment
it's a different game now.
Yeah.
Well,
it's basically create it yourself.
I don't see editors at conventions anymore.
No, that's how I got all my business. I'd sit down with you guys behind the desk.
Me too.
You know what? They're there. You just don't know who they are.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, they don't.
I mean,
they don't sit at a table anymore.
When I got into comics in 1975, the editors in the business were Joe Orlando, Dick Giordano, Julie Schwartz, Murray Boltinoff, Stan Lee, Wally Green, Nick Cuddy. I mean, we knew these guys because we were part of the fandom and Archie, of course. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So but these were, I don't know any of the editors today. I don't know anybody who's in the job, and I'm sure there are very talented people doing the work. I'm not casting any aspersions on them, but who's today's Archie Goodwin? Who's today's Julie Schwartz? Who's today's Stan Lee? Who's today's Murray
Jim
Bolt?
Shooter.
We make fun, Jim Shooter. Yeah, we used to make fun of Murray Boltinoff at DC Comics because he did Superman and Sons and all the ridiculous stuff. And then one day somebody said, Murray's World's Finest, Murray's Brave and Bold outsells the Batman titles. Murray's Unexpected with the Louis Dominguez covers outsells Joe Orlando's House of Mystery with Bernie Wrightson covers. So who knows? Who knows? Because I guess those guys were. Well, see here, Murray was making comics for readers, and the rest of these guys were making comics for fans.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were fans themselves. But and I think today they're probably just making they're making comics for fans because there are no more readers. There are no more casual readers of comics, are there? I don't know.
Our new Archie Goodwin and Stan Lee is Rolling Man.
Well, to a certain extent, that's true.
And we'll bring you in, Paul.
Yeah, I
recognize. I was an adequate editor. I was okay. I was never going to be a great editor. I could be a good editor because I could, at least empathize with the.
I knew when I saw your name as editor, I was going to get a good book. It might not be a great book,
right?
But it would be a good book that I would enjoy reading, and that was enough.
And then he killed Archie.
And every once in a while, you would knock it out of the park.
Thank you.
I every month, I knew I was going to get a good read when I was picking up a Paul Kupperburg book. So,
thank you. I tried to do as good as I could with the stuff. Yeah. They also knew I wasn't. There were very few. Julie Schwartzes if anybody, well, anybody listening to this will probably know who Julie is, but but here was a guy who just understood his market. He understood his reader. Mort Weisinger, who was the guy who edited Superman through the 1950s and 60s, and he's the guy who came up with the Bottled City of Kandor and the Krypton. And well, he didn't come up with kryptonite, but he started using it in the comics.
He came up with the different kinds of kryptonite, if I remember right.
Yeah,
the different kinds that they had.
He realized that his readers were were usually 8 to 13 years old. That was the age range they thought, and it was believed that after 13 or so, kids moved on to other stuff. I mean, the annuals from the early 1960s, all the stories reprinted in them most of them were no more than 3, 4, 5 years old, because they knew their readers had aged out, and this wasn't going to be old hat to them. They so because there was a new
batch of readers. I remember picking up some of those.
Did the most ridiculous shit in the world. Comet speaking of the Super Cat and Comet the Super Horse and the Kryptonites and Superman gets a giant ant head and whatever it was.
The
was
monkey.
Crazy.
Who is the monkey? Super monkey.
Super monkeys, yeah. Beppo the super monkey.
Beppo, that's it.
Beppo, of course. How could you forget Beppo?
Just like I can forget Newark, who I used to ink.
Yeah, my boys absolutely love. My boys absolutely love the fact that Superman had his pets. So
but he understood his market was young boys, and so he did things that would find young kids interested.
Yeah,
I have my personally signed copy from Paul Levitz.
That's a doorstop. That's a doorstop.
I told Paul I won't be able to read it until I can afford to hire a spotter.
This is where my boys discovered that Superman had pets. So fantastic
Great.
book, most expensive book I've ever paid for.
And your boys love it. That's great.
Fortunately, I got a comp. So.
Well, we had better wrap it up for tonight because we're already over an hour.
A little after 8.
But
eight
I could talk. I could talk with Paul for hours on these podcasts. We could just shoot the shit for hours.
You just like that I rag on people.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm the alpha B around here.
Nice.
I want to thank you again, Paul, for being here. I want to thank our regulars, Mickey, Rob, Martin, for being here with us. And who's got next week's?
That would be me, I believe. Is next week the April 3rd? Yeah, next week's April 3rd. Right. Or our topic will be religion and philosophy in comics. So we will be talking about that. So that'll be an interesting topic. I will try to expand our horizons into other categories that I have not explored. But so and maybe we'll talk about like some who I can't remember who it is. Not was it Neil Adams or the Steranko? One of those guys had some interesting philosophies that they tried to create in comic book form. So we'll maybe bring them up.
Ditko.
Ditko, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Ditko actually put a lot of his philosophy into his books.
Ayn Rand.
What is it? Not collectivism.
And maybe we'll bring up Will Eisner with the contract with God and stuff like that. So it should be an interesting conversation. But I will also try to expand it into seeing if we can find comic books from other environments from around the world and see how people portray.
Don't forget the Jewish comics, please.
So we will try to look into that in a wide scope and see what we can glean from that. So
and you're always welcome to come back, Paul.
Yep.
So
Doors
as
wide
we like to say at the end of our streams, make mine Silverline.
Silverline.
Make mine Silverline.
Silverline. Hi, my name is Paul Kupperburg. Make mine Silverline.